Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello, my name is Irly Fauziah. Here I will present a journal review for my final semester assessment. The first journal is titled Economic Growth, Inequality, and Property, Estimating the Growth Elasticity of Property, authored by Richard Adams, Journal World Development, year 2004, publisher Xavier, File of Study, Development Economy. Background study. This research is motivated by the debate and the development literature regarding the extent to which economic growth and can reduce poverty in developing countries, particularly regarding the elasticity of property with respect to growth. Study in the 1990s, generally estimate an elasticity of 2 to 3, which is the basis for international institution global poverty projection. However, Bala challenged this estimate, stating that the elasticity is much higher, approaching 5, thus having significant implication for estimates of the number of poor people and the effectiveness of development policies. This difference is not only academic but also has a direct impact on policy formulation. Therefore, this study aims to explain why this elasticity estimate differ and what factor influence the strength or weakness of the relationship between economic growth and poverty reduction. Research objective. The study aims to show that estimates of the elasticity of property to growth are highly sensitive to the growth measures to simultaneously analyze the relationship between economic growth, income inequality, and property, and to provide empirical clarification of the debate between traditional and new approach in the global poverty literature, so that development policies are not based on erroneous assumption. Methodology. The study used a new, further dataset from 60 developing countries from the 1980 to the late 1990s with 126 observation interval based on household survey and analyze the relationship between change in property, economic growth, and income inequality, and compare growth from survey data with GDP per capita, providing a more comprehensive analysis of the effect of growth on property, taking inequality in account. And finding of the research The results show that economic growth does reduce poverty in developing countries, especially when measuring using household survey data with a poverty elasticity of around 2.79. However, when measuring using GDP per capita, the elasticity is lower, 2.77 uh, 2.27 and less statistically significant, making GDP per capita less reliable in capturing change in welfare. Furthermore, income inequality influence the extent of growth impact on poverty reduction. High growth does not necessarily reduce poverty inequality if inequality remains high. Strength and weakness. Richard's Adam article excel in its use of cross-national data based on household survey and analysis that embraces the role of economic growth and income inequality in poverty reduction. However, this study suffer from limitation related to potential measurement error, limit time span, and uh, empirical approach that fail to capture long-term dynamics and structural difference between countries. Conclusion, the effect of economic growth on property depends on how it is measured. Uh, Growth remains crucial for property reduction, but growth reflected an increase in household income or consumption is more relevant than GDP growth alone. These findings emphasize the importance of inclusive growth, controlling inequality, and measuring development success based on broader societal well-being rather than simply economic figure. The second journal title is Oil Price, Stock and Stock Market Activities Evident from Oil Importing and Oil Exporting Countries, authored by Yutong Wang, Chongpeng Wu, and Li Yang, a Journal of Comparative Economics, year 2030, publisher Elsevier, File of Study, Development Economics. Background study, this research is motivated by the strategic role of crude oil in the global economy and its impact on macroeconomic stability and stock market. Previous, uh, previous study generally focus on oil importing countries and assumed the impact of price increases was always negative, whereas the effect differ between oil importing and exporting countries. Furthermore, many studies fail to distinguish between the sources of oil import oil price shocks. Although recent literature suggests that the type of shock determines the direction and strength of the impact. Therefore, the study aims to fill this gap by systematically analyze the impact of oil price by country type and oil shock type. Research objective, this study analyzes the stock market response to oil price shock by distinguishing all importing and exporting countries, identifying difference in impact based on the source of the shock, assessing the magnitude, direction, and resilience of stock market response, and examining the interrelationship between stock market movement across countries as implementation for international portfolio diversification. Methodology, the study used a quantitative as per approach with monthly data from 1999 to 2011 from major oil importing and exporting countries. The SFAR model separates oil price shock into supply shock, global aggregate demand shock, and oil specific shock, with the main analysis using ERF and FIVD to assess the response and contribute of stock to stock market return variation. Main finding of the research, the stock market respond to oil price shock depend heavily on a country's position in the global oil market. Global oil demand shock tend to have positive and long-lasting effect, particularly for exporting countries, while supply shock are generally weaker. Shocks resulting from geopolitical uncertainty have a negative impact on exporter but are relatively insignificant insignificant for importer. Overall, stock market movements are stronger in exporting countries, particularly when oil price are influenced by aggregate demand and prim- primitive demand, while this pattern is inconsistent inconsistent in emerging countries. Strength and weakness. Wang Wu and Yang article makes a strong contribute by distinguishing the impact of oil prices shock and on importing and exporting countries using SPAR and cross-country monthly data. Contact limit by the data period, the linearity assumption, and the failure to consider institutional factor and small developing countries, the study remains an important difference in the study are the relationship between oil price and stock market. Conclusion: the study concludes that the relationship between oil price and stock market is heterogeneous and influenced by the type of stock and the country's status as an importer or exporter. These findings underscore the importance of considering economic structure and investment policies and strategies and suggest that stock market linkage have implication for international portfolio diversification. That concludes my journal review presentation. I apologize for any shortcomings. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.